So here we'll be solving simple linear equations using multiplication and division of real numbers. So if we have an equation A equals B, multiplying both sides with a number, let's just call it K. A times K is equal to B times K. As long as we're multiplying both sides with the exact same number, the two sides of the equation are still equal, which means we get an equivalent form of A equals B. They mean the same thing. Similarly, if we have A equals B and we divide both sides with a non-zero number K, so K is not equal to 0, because remember, dividing by 0 is gives you something that is undefined. So if I divide both sides by a non-zero number, then we get an equivalent form of the equation. So A equals B is the same as A divided by K equals B divided by K. So this is the technique that we're going to use to solve this equation. So 6x equals 2. That's the same as saying 6 times x equals 2. So solving for x is the same as isolating x, or getting x by itself on one side. So if it were 6 plus x equals 2, to get rid of 6, I would subtract 6 on both sides. But here, notice that it is 6 times x. So in order to get rid of the 6, subtraction doesn't work. So 6 times x equals 2. We divide both sides by 6 in order to get rid of it. So if I divide 6x by 6, I can cancel the common factors because each is a factor, because this is multiplication. And finally, I get x equals 2 over 6. I can simplify 2 over 6. So 2 is 2 times 1. I break it down into prime factors. 6 is 2 times 3. Now same thing again, I cancel common factors and I get x equals 1/3. I can check my answer by plugging it back in to the equation. 6x equals 2. So I plug in the x equals 1/3 into the equation. 6 times 1/3 equals 2. 6 times 1/3 is 6 over 1 times 1 over 3, which is 6. That is, you can write it as 3 times 2 times 1. So that's 6 times 1 divided by the denominator 1 times 3, which is 3, equals 2. Cancel the common factors and I get 2 equals 2. So the answer is correct. Now suppose I have 1/3 u equals 1/6. There are a couple of ways of doing this or solving this problem. So you could think of it as 1/3 times u is equal to 1/6. Okay. So if 1/3 is multiplied with u, I can divide both sides by 1/3, which will cancel off the 1/3 on both sides in the numerator and the denominator. And I get u equals 1/6 divided by 1/3, which is the same as 1/6 multiplied by the reciprocal of 1/3, which is 3 over 1. 3 goes 2 times into 6. I cancel the common factor, which is 3. And in the numerator, I have 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 1 is 2 in the denominator. So that's one way of solving it. Another way of solving it would be, I think, easier. So 1/3 u equals 1/6. So instead of dividing by 1/3, I multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 1/3 because I want to get rid of this 1/3. I can get rid of it if I multiplied with its reciprocal, which is 3 over 1. So if I multiply the left with 3 over 1, I multiply the right side with 3 over 1. So the 3 and the 3 get cancelled, and I'm left with a u on the left, which is equal to 1 times 3 over 6 times 1. I can simplify it. 3 goes 2 times into 6, or you can do it the long way. 6 is 2 times 3 times 1, the 1 from here. I cancel the 3's and I get u equals half. Now negative z equals 3. I multiply both sides with negative 1 because I need to get rid of this negative sign to solve for z. So I multiply both sides with a negative 1 to get negative 1 times negative z is positive z. This is equal to negative 3. So if I want to get rid of the negative sign on the z, just multiply both sides with a negative 1 and you get the answer. Now same thing here. If I want to solve for y, I could multiply both sides with the reciprocal of negative 2/3, which is negative 3/2. So I multiply both sides with negative 3/2. Both sides have to be multiplied with negative 3/2. So if I multiply negative 2/3 with its reciprocal, the 3 and the 3 get cancelled, the 2 and the 2 get cancelled, the negative 1 times negative 1 is positive, and I'm left with a positive y on the left and negative 3 over 2 times 3 is the same as negative 3 over 2 times 3 over 1. So y equals negative 3/2 times 3 over 1, which is equal to negative 9 over 2. So that's a 1, I'm sorry. So your answer is y equals negative 9 over 2.